Age defying energy. How I create it. It's a bit of a bold statement, but I'm going to be 40 in exactly 2 months. And I can safely say that I have significantly more energy now than I did in my 20s. And although I've naturally been a high energy person to some degree, I believe there are 5 fundamental things I do differently now than I did in my 20s that help me operate with more energy without trying. So if you are someone in your late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, like me, maybe you run a business, you've got partners, kids, more importantly, a lot more responsibilities to think about. I'm going to be sharing with you nothing groundbreaking today, but 5 of the key reasons why I believe my energy is one of my biggest assets right now. Because for me, energy is super important. You know, it's everything in life, in my opinion. Without energy, everything can feel a lot more tedious. You get less done. You can't give the best of who you are to the people you love most, maybe your team, your clients, your prospects, whoever it is, without energy, especially over a calendar year. Okay. I think what's key is, as a business owner, and with a lot of people to think about, is how can you maintain high energy as much as possible across a calendar year? And for me, the older you get, you can't just wish for more energy. You have to create it. And I have spoke about energy on a number of podcasts as a guest and my previous episodes. But I had a new client come on board the other week, and he asked me, like, how do you keep your energy? And it was just a really simple, specific question that just made me hone in, right? What is it that I actually do that gives me the energy I have now and allows me to get more done? Because being fully transparent, I really believe in my 20s, and this might relate to you, I was always someone who would always tell people how busy I am. I've got a lot on. I'm relentless in all I do. But deep down, I'm nowhere near as efficient as what I do now. And I was constantly battered at the end of a day, looking back, especially when I was personal training, and it got to maybe a Thursday, Friday of each week. I simply had to try harder to pick myself up. And look, of course, I have days where I have energy dips. I'm maybe not as vibrant, but 95% of the year, you know, energy for me is not something that lets me down in terms of the outcomes I want. Okay, so I'm going to keep this episode as tight as I possibly can, and hopefully it should plant some seeds or give a little bit more context to some of the things that I may have spoken about in previous podcasts, you might have heard before on other podcasts or social media posts, and just try and be really specific about these 5 things and how I believe they really do impact your energy. Because for me, the average your energy is going to be the byproduct of these three things. Because for me, there are 3 types of energy. There is mental energy, there is visual energy, and there is physical energy. You can be sometimes feel physically energized but mentally tired. You can be maybe mentally energized but visually tired, especially if you're in front of computers a lot. You've got a tech job, or you're just looking at your screens a lot, which is so common in the world we live in today in the majority of industries. Okay, so get a pen and paper, and I'd love to hear after this episode anything that stands out, or if anything that relates, or anything you feel that if you just look at it from my perspective and maybe implemented some of these things, it would make a difference. The first one, and I believe this is huge if you're trying to get ahead in any field and create success in any given area, right? When it comes to energy, the first one is I spend more time with people and I have more relationships with those that help charge my energy as opposed to drain it. I'm pretty sure if you're listening to this, we currently have or have had in our lives people who have an amazing gift of injecting us with energy. They're just amazing to be around. You could be tired 1 minute, then you start talking to this person, you're around that person, and you just find that other gear you didn't know you had. They're positive. They just magnetize great energy. And I'm pretty sure you've also had people who drain your energy, where the moment they walk into the room, the moment they start talking, it's negative, it's low energy. They're blaming life, they're blaming circumstance. They're talkers as opposed to doers. They are not aligned to your values, and there's friction. It's sticky. And I've said many times on previous podcasts, who you spend your time with has a monumental influence on everything you do, how you think, how you speak. But I sometimes think that people don't appreciate in granular detail how much the people and the relationships they have influence their physical and mental energy. So for me, in my 20s, although I had many great friends and some of them are still my friends today, I definitely spent more time with people who played the victim, weren't really going anywhere in life, would sit in their comfort zone, would be negative, would moan about what they don't have, would talk about other people all the time in a negative way, especially if people are successful, or maybe if someone's in great shape. There was always a but that followed it. And these people, you need to be really guarded more than ever around these people. And speaking for myself, I am absolutely ruthless now with who I spend my time with. I'm also blessed to be in a more empowering relationship with Gabby, of course. Do we have our moments where we don't agree and we have friction? Of course. Even the people I spend my time with, majority of the time, do I have friction? Of course. But it's all about percentages. So a great question to ask yourself is, are the people and the relationships that I have in my life charging my energy, or are they draining it? And if there is someone or a group of people that stick out like a sore thumb that are not helping the energy you wish to live with, then they've got to go. Or at least you have to spend less time with these people. But that's made a massive difference in my life on so many different reasons, but especially energy. You want to be around people that make you better, that are living with purpose, that stretch your capabilities, that respect their own energy as well. Because when you find that sweet spot, and the handful of people you spend time with, like the relationship you have, the high energy and the just positive energy, you will feel more importantly, let me rephrase that, you will find energy you never knew you had around the right people. Think about this. How many times have you been absolutely shattered in a given week, and then you bump into someone that maybe you haven't seen in a long time, or is just a great energetic person, and all of a sudden you go from being tired to really high energy very quickly? These are the people you need to connect with more and spend time with more. And I suppose where I'm really lucky now is I have a relationship that injects energy into me. Okay, me and Gabby keep each other on our toes, but we both live with purpose, we both live with drive. My close friends, they're driven, they're successful, they love helping people, they value health, they eat good food, they train regularly. And of course, I'm blessed to have an unbelievable community and a coaching team that all of their highest values is energy and health. They really respect who they're becoming as a person, and they exercise, they train well. They're generally positive with their language. They focus on what they want and who they're trying to become, as opposed to what they don't want and the energy they don't want to have. There's a big difference. Okay. The second one, this is to do with food. I get asked all the time, what do I eat? How do I look the way I do? I've been in shape now for the best part of 25 years, well, my whole life, in fact. But I'd say with a six pack and with a large majority of my training gym focused, and how my physical shape looks, my strength, my performance, a long time in shape. but there is one thing I've done with my diet that, although it is nothing to do with calories, I believe has had one of the biggest differences in my physical energy. And that is eat less meat. I used to eat copious amounts of chicken and steak. There was even periods where I'd eat steak twice a day because that's what I believe you needed to do to build strength and build muscle and have gains, right? It's absolute horseshit. You don't need to eat copious amounts of meat to have a great body. I might have looked great, got my covers and all that type of stuff, okay? And I appreciate this. You're learning. We're all learning about our body, and you're around different people as part of your journey. But when you're eating that much meat, like I was probably eating 600-700 grams raw weight meat minimum across a day. That's a hell of a lot of meat for your body to digest. Meat, remember, is significantly slower to digest than fish, eggs, even high quality whey isolates, etc. But since eating less meat, the last, I would say 4 years, my energy's gone through the roof, and it has a massive impact on sleep. I feel like I'm fitter now as a result of eating more digestible proteins. So if you are someone that's thinking that you need to eat lots of meat, right, to hit your protein target, maybe have a look at that and maybe try and replace it with some fish, proteins that will help aid your digestion a little bit more. Because I think as you age, just speaking on behalf of myself and many clients who come onto the Built to Last program, they don't just want to look good, but they want to move better, they want to sleep better, feel better. And the better your food digests that you put in your mouth, the easier that's going to happen. So for me, what I do when it comes to meat just now, I haven't eradicated it completely, because red meat, chicken, it's tasty, and there are many nutritional benefits too. But I generally eat red meat once a week. There might be the odd occasion it's twice, but it's very, very rare. And then chicken, I probably eat that once, twice a week too. But just test it out over the next sort of 2, 3, 4 weeks, where you have more fish as opposed to meat, and just have an awareness on how you feel, have an awareness on your energy levels, rate yourself out of 10 compared to maybe previously when you've had lots of meat. But that has made a massive difference on my energy for sure. The next one is drink less alcohol, right? Might sound pretty obvious, right? If you drink less, you feel better, you have more energy. No shit. But sometimes people are trying to find these magic shortcuts when they're trying to live with more energy and look better. And look, we all have different priorities in life as we grow older, different ways we like to relax and enjoy ourselves. And look, I've made no secrets that I've loved a drink or 20 in my time. Every single week I was out in my 20s, sometimes twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. And it would take me days to recover, that you'd lose enormous amounts of productivity. It would affect your mood. And although I was in the gym every Monday, even if I had a big weekend, it has to impact your performance in some way. So if your sessions, as a result of drinking alcohol or too much alcohol each weekend, are impacting your performance, your movement on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then there's no way you're going to be maximizing the energy that you want to operate with. And I think if you're like me and energy has become a lot more valuable to you at this stage of your life, then just have a look at how much alcohol you're actually consuming each month to month across a year. I'm not saying stop. It's you got to do what you like when it comes to relaxing, but just make sure you've got maybe a little bit more control if you find that is the one thing that slows you down a little bit more. One question I always ask myself at the end of each year is, what are the habits that are holding me back from the body I want, the business I want, the life I want, and the person I'm trying to become? And the one thing that keeps coming back to me each year I do that is alcohol. And I'm not saying I'm going to stop by any means, but I haven't had a drink this year. And the difference that has made in my energy has been astronomical. So for me, I have a little rule now that if I'm going to have a drink, the occasion, the people I spend my time with, and the experience better be worth it. Better be worth the hangover if I'm going in. Okay. But in my 20s, I would, yeah, the big weekend certainly took a hit on my energy levels. And I think as you get older, if you kept doing the same as what you were doing in your 20s, you are naturally going to have that dip in energy just through aging. So I think one of the most simplistic things you can do to counteract that is drink less alcohol. I'm not changing the world by that statement, but just look at what you're currently doing and ask yourself, is my current level of alcohol consumption, and maybe the type of drinks I drink, is that helping or hindering the energy I wish to live with? And what else is that affecting? Is it affecting my business? Is it affecting my body, my health? Is it affecting my relationships? Is it affecting my ability to be present with my children? And if you don't like the answers to those questions, then you're literally choosing to consume alcohol at the expense of those other areas of life and the people that no doubt you're doing this, you're doing all your work for. Okay. The next one, not groundbreaking here, but I sleep more. I think, especially having conversations to enormous amounts of clients over the last few years, the one thing that sticks out like a sore thumb that you sort of got away with doing less of in your 20s because you've naturally got that high energy, that enthusiasm, is sleep. I neglected that enormously in my 20s. I really did. And you get away with it. But at some point, you're going to take the hit on that if you keep neglecting it. I used to sleep, I would say, in my 20s, an average of 5 hours a night, sometimes less. As a result, I would rely on coffee, too much coffee, and more importantly, pre-workouts to get through my workouts. Constantly looking for that top up, which doesn't work after a certain point. There's only so much caffeine you can consume. But yeah, it was horrific. My value on sleep, well, there wasn't really a value on sleep. If you look back at probably 15 years ago of statuses on my Facebook, there would have been sentences like sleep when you're dead, sleeping's cheating, or what. It's just absolute ludicrous. And it's all part of growing up, of course. But for me, there is nothing that will positively impact your energy management more and the level of vibrancy you want to live with than sleep, and in particular, sleep quality. And that has made a huge difference in my life in the last few years. As a result of sleeping more and better, I train harder, even though I'm older. I lift more, even though I'm older. You naturally want to move around a little bit more because you don't have to try as hard to consciously do it because you well slept. And when you sleep better, you don't have to try as hard to eat better. And which is everyone's nemesis, is managing food, especially as you get older and you got more money to eat in nice restaurants. And you might have more business meetings. You might have a partner or kids to think about now. So simply put, you've got more opportunities to overeat. And if you are neglecting sleep, you're more likely to cave to willpower and not control your eating decisions. And they're going to contradict the energy you want, the body you want, and more importantly, the health you want. So for me, sleep has been an absolute game changer. There are times when, due to travel, my body clock can be all over the shop, but I will always try and claw it back or make the best of the situation in relation to the time zones I'm on and just dealing with times where I've got enormous amounts of work. But even on a worse day now, that was probably my best day back in my 20s. So if you want to really, really, really like fight your age and try and preserve how you look, the energy you want, even things like your skin, sleep more. Nothing will help you more. And just to really hammer this home, I have a lot of people when they first meet me now that don't think I'm 40. My partner Gabby might disagree. She thinks I do look nearly 40. I don't. But all of us, ultimately, as we get older, we're trying to fight our age. I don't think anyone, given the choice, or if there was a magic pill, said, right, you can look a lot younger. Just take this. Majority of people would take it. That's why a lot of people are having Botox now and any sort of treatment to try and look younger. But the best treatment of all is sleep and a good diet, right? I would say I age more from the age of 20 to 30 than I have from 30 to 40. And the reasons I'm sharing with you today are fundamental to that. But the biggest of all for me is sleep, right? Nothing's going to help your skin more and prevent aging, in my opinion. Then lastly, this ties into purpose. And you might be someone listening to this who is supremely happy with what you do and the people you do what you do with. But you might also be listening to this not liking what you do, not liking the people that you spend time with to do what you do. And this makes a big difference to your energy. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it and be deluded. I do things every single week that I don't like to do. I think anyone who says they don't need to do anything in a given week that they don't want to do, or they have a little bit more friction doing, is talking nonsense. Even if you've got your business really streamlined with great systems and great team and all that type of stuff, if you're continually growing, you're going to have challenges. You're going to have to get your hands dirty from time to time. You're going to have to do things that you don't want to do. Even if it's an awkward conversation with staff, hiring someone, firing someone, you've got an awkward customer, you're going to have things that you don't like to do. But you want to make sure that the majority of your week, especially from a professional point of view, with what you do in your career, in your job, you like what you do. If I look in my early 20s, I've said this, of course, if for those of you who don't know my backstory, failed professional football at 20, then from the age of 20 to 26, I was a qualified gas engineer. Fuck knows how I qualified, even still to this day. I must have been very nice to the teacher, the lecturer, sorry. At the age of 20 to 26, I was a plumber and gas engineer. I did not like it one bit. It didn't align to my values. It didn't meet my needs. It didn't make me happy. And I was spending a lot of time across my week doing that. That has to have an impact on how you feel and your mental and your physical energy. If you don't like what you do, you will feel mentally and more than likely physically tired before you even start whatever it is that you should be doing. So I really, really encourage you to analyze your week. Even if you are running your own business, you're in a job, and ask yourself, am I really happy with what I do? Because what we do professionally has enormous impact on our day-to-day vibrancy and the energy that we operate with. Right? When you are doing something that gives you energy, it's got purpose, intent, you can see progression, you see growth, you see contribution, you'll find energy you didn't know you had, right? And you'll go the extra mile. Even if you're working double the hours, you won't feel as tired because you're more energized doing that thing because you like it. If you don't, 1 hour can feel like 8. 10 minutes can feel like 4 hours. I've been there, got the t-shirt. Look, everyone's in a different position just now, and I can totally relate to anyone. As I said, I know what it's like to be in a job that wasn't making me happy. And if this is you and you're thinking, yeah, but Kirk, it's easy for you because you love what you're doing now. But I had to put the wheels in motion to create that change. But if you just moan about where you're not or what you don't have, then nothing's going to change. There's always something you can do. We live in a world now full of so many opportunities, so many resources, so many free resources on the internet, on YouTubes and podcasts and stuff like that. You can learn anything you really want to if you set aside some time to do that. And maybe you do run a business, you like your business, but the problem, and maybe this ties in with point number 1, is you don't like who you're running that business with. You're not quite as happy with your team as what you are maybe papering over. Maybe you don't like the type of clients you're trying to attract into your business, or you have attracted into your business. You've got the power to change that. You really have. But you have to be strong, and it takes courage to do that. I know what it's like to quit my job with 5 hours personal training from that plumbing job. People thought it was crazy. Borrowing a van to kick off my personal training journey just in case I still had to do some plumbing to make some money to pay my bills and stuff. But I took a chance because I wasn't happy. And I really believe that if you're not living with purpose, you're not going to be living with energy. So you want to be aiming for at least 60% of your week. 60% of your week should be filled up with things you like to do from a work perspective, lifestyle perspective, and the people you spend your time with. Basically, more simply put, the more your week up is filled with things that you value, that inspire you, that energize you, that you don't get tired doing, you're going to live with more energy. Then when you pair good nutrition, good sleep, exercise, a good peer group around that, the outcome of that is going to be energy that you never knew was possible. And that's where the magic happens. Because I think all of us are trying to squeeze as much out of life. And when we look back in 40, 50 years' time, however long we've got on this earth, did I accomplish as much as I wanted to? Did I live with purpose? Did I live with vibrancy? Did I live with energy? And look, there are some ups and downs in life. I'm not deluded, and I'm going to ignore that. But if you just implement some of the things I spoke about today, I would positively probe, that you will certainly live with more energy. I think your biggest KPI of whether or not how you're living is on point just now. It'll be down to the day-to-day vibrancy that you either have or don't have. The habits you have and the way you live are going to be creating the energy you have or don't have right now. If you don't like the answer to that, and you feel like your energy is inconsistent, it goes up, it goes down, or you have some weeks where you're on fire with your energy and you have some where you have horrendous energy, evaluate your habits, evaluate how you live, evaluate the people you spend time with, evaluate the food you put in your mouth and how you're managing you. Because there's always something you can do if you don't like the answer to that question. Okay? So if you're not happy with that, what do you need to change? Because as I've said many times on previous podcasts, you cannot give what you don't have. If you want more energy, you have to create it. In your 20s, you can just keep dusting off that suit and, I'm going to show up with energy today. It gets exhausting if you're not creating that. So hopefully the things I've spoke about today, I've just planted some seeds, nothing magic, nothing groundbreaking, but spend time with good people, protect the relationships you have, eat less meat, drink less alcohol, focus on sleep quality, and try and like what you do as much as possible and watch your energy go to a completely different level. And that's a wrap. I would love to hear your feedback as always. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe, follow if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.